so don't worry. Okay, yeah. So, Simon, hi, welcome.
Hello.
Can you just introduce yourself rapidly?
Sure. My name is Simon Schneider. I'm the general manager of Incentives Grant Challenges and the former CEO of OmniCompete.
And what does OmniCompete and what does Innocentive Grand Challenges do?
We are one of the leaders in open innovation, which is, in our case, what we're using is the tool of challenges and prizes to stimulate innovation, connect the people with the ideas, the entrepreneurs, the researchers, with the people who are looking for them, the government entities, labs, venture capitalists, and big companies. So we're almost an eBay of ideas, if you will.
That's great. And you mentioned prizes. I mean, uh, obviously, we have heard so much about traditional prizes. You know, you have prizes for everything. In what sense challenges and prizes are different from the Nobel Prize or the typical recognition prizes? What is different?
Yeah, we're running not typically recognition prizes, although you could. I think there's two different parts to the answer. One answer is what we do at Incentive, we're actually trying to solve problems through challenges. And that could be small ones. It could be that a company comes to us and says, Simon, I have a BMW and I work on this new car, and I have a small technology item that I need your help. I want to outsource the efforts.
Simon, can
And
you wait 1 second? When you move, the screen moves, so it becomes disturbing because probably because you are leaning on the table. So if you can restart this answer or put it because otherwise you see your face moving up and down.
but so you're saying when I move to the table,
Yes, exactly,
I'm
exactly.
trying to just not use the table. Your question, let's do it again. If you ask me the
Yeah,
question,
yeah.
it's easier.
The question is, we have prizes. We have had lots of prizes. In what sense your challenges or prizes are different from, the prize given to the best e-government application? In what sense these are inducement prizes are new?
I think great question, and I think um, what you have to think about when you're using prizes is there are a serious tool and a serious program to solve innovation challenges, and the way we approach it is typically from two different points of views. We either want to use prizes and challenges, as you said, as an inducement prize, where a government entity or a foundation wants to use a challenge to really solve a big problem, let's say cure a big disease or even solve a market failure. And these are typically big challenges that go over a couple of years, but the real killer is that you only pay if the price gets solved, if the challenge gets solved. That's when you pay the price, which makes it a very different, very practical tool to an R&D grant that a government entity might give out to a researcher, because there you pay for effort, and in the prize you pay for results. In addition, we at Incentive, we're also doing challenges that are more of a better procurement. So if you have a small technical challenge and you say, I want this pen to be 10% more efficient, and I only pay for a 10% increase, a solution with 10% increase, but I want the result to be used by my company, then it's really a different way of doing procurement. And this is how companies, foundations, and government entities are working with us.
Great. So, can you mention any cases that are interesting, which can inspire to the audience to understand how they could use challenges and inducement prizes?
Absolutely. I think there's prizes are really not a new tool. They go back to the 1714 British Longitude Prize of the Royal Navy, and actually, in for even there they show great potential, because in 1714, one of my to go in that case, the Royal Navy was looking for a solution to determine the longitude of vessels. My favorite part of that whole story is that the Royal Navy in 1714 was as powerful as today Pentagon and the Chinese army together. And this huge industrial complex couldn't solve that problem for years. And who solved it? It was an entrepreneur. It was a watchmaker from England. So that shows already how prizes, if done right, can solve outsiders, can solve problems for big foundations and government entities. DARPA has been very famous with its automotive prizes in the US. Um, Even the Saltire Prize here in the UK have shown that government entities are using this for two reasons: to solve big problems that be of macroeconomic interest, and on the other hand, stimulate an internal industry in their country to bring investment and ideas into their country.
So, what prizes have you organized that you can mention were particularly interesting? Also, in terms of amount of prize, what are we talking about? Are we talking about an apps contest of 10,000 euros, or are we talking about the DARPA Grand Challenge of $1 million?
I talk more about the bigger ones, but I'm not excluding. Typically, what we do is I think you need to make prizes also smaller in terms of incrementally reach the big goal. That's what I believe. We're doing, for example, one right now for the Sam Schmidt Foundation in the US, which is to cure spinal cord injury, which would be an amazing achievement. But we don't just say, here's $10 million, solve it, and call us when you've done it, and send us an email. So what we're doing, actually coming back to smaller challenges, what we do that prize, it's going to go over 8 years, and we're doing a lot of smaller ones first, bring the community together, solve small part, and then eventually can solve the big challenge. So this is typically what we do. Is we're looking at a big problem, like as you said, it's not an app challenge. That's not the end goal, but perhaps an app challenge could be needed to get to the next stage. And this is where we add value to our clients, because we normally start with a problem that a government entity comes to us and says, we need to increase the use of solar energy in the Netherlands. And that is an end goal, but you need to bring it down to how can we run challenges to address that, and what are the smaller pieces in order to get to your goal.
Great. And actually, you're mentioning one of the key challenges of government innovation policy, which is to attract the real innovators. I mean, I don't know about Italy, but certainly in Europe, many evaluations have been carried out, and they say there is a risk of usual suspects. So there is a risk that it's always the people who are expert in participating in filling forms, in using buzzwords, that participate to innovation. In what sense do challenges disrupt this lock-in?
I think challenges are doing it in a different way, and I think that the key word is incentivation, meaning in European, as you said, in these typical FP7 projects, is you have rules that force people to come together. In challenges, you only incentivize. You don't give a rule, because the main difference is that you don't care how the goal is achieved. That is the main difference. You say, this is the goal. However you get to this, I don't care. I'm paying the price if you get there. And if you're incentivizing collaboration or different people, that's great, but you're not enforcing it with a rule. We did a really interesting study with we've run as a group 1,420 competitions in the last 10 years, and we had a professor from Harvard look at all our past data, because we wanted to know who solved our challenges, and are they all experts from the inside or were they from outside? And what we found out, of course, was a mix, but what we found out that everything being equal, an outsider actually has a 10% higher chance of solving a problem for an insider problem. And that, I think, is the amazing part, to show the value of competitions, because you advertise it to everybody, and coming back to the longitude prize, get that watchmaker to solve a problem for the army or the navy is what a challenge can achieve, because you're lowering the barrier, you make it open for everybody, and you don't care how you achieve it. And I think that's where the government should use more and more this tool, not in everything, but as a serious tool in the innovation policy.
So, you mentioned innovation policy. Do you see an evolution in innovation policy also around the world? Do you see more attention being paid to inducement prizes?
Oh, absolutely. The America Competes Act, signed by President Obama last year, was a huge sign of taking it more seriously. But even if you look into Brussels, I see a lot of different parts of the commissions more and more asking for advice and running of challenges. In the UK, we've seen them more and more. I think, well, Germany perhaps not yet. They will come along, and Italy. But yes, I see. I always compare the prize industry today, in my view, is where venture capital was in the 1960s, meaning the early adopters are using it. It's a new tool, but the masses are not yet on that, haven't jumped on. And I think right now we're exactly on that point because same thing with venture capital. You needed a bunch of data and laws to change before it became an industry that it is today. And so I think we'll see this for prizes that they're not. I'm not saying, I'm not saying the EU Commission will spend 90% of its R&D budget on prizes, but could it become a tool that is 2% of the innovation policy spent on prizes? That could be the future, and I hope it is.
That's great. And do you see any risk? I mean, in the government, open government contest, we have seen lots of apps competition. And there are people, we interviewed Digifil, one of O'Reilly's media evangelists on open government. And as many people mentioned, there is a risk of overload of contests and prizes. Do you see this risk? And what is the solution to the, let's say, excess of information about prices and content? How do you make sure that the right innovators pay attention and are attracted to your contest? So it's a double question. No? Is there an overload? And if there is, how do you solve this problem in attracting the right people?
And and I think that's a great question. And I think the way to answer it is a bit differently. But the way I think there's two different ways. One is, as you said, one is I think the way I see the future, and and the other one is how do you today make sure that your competition is seen? And I think you're absolutely right. So that's one of the reasons for today is that's why you should work with a company like us, not necessarily us, but one of us as the experts, because you don't want to say, here's my competition, I throw it out there, and I create a big disaster like some agencies already have done because no one cares. You made it too hard. Um, your prize money is not adequate to the effort that has to go in. And so typically what we do to answer the second part of the question is there are five drivers of visibility of competition. One is the prize money. Yeah, if you have 10 million to spend on the prize, you will get the world's attention. Similar, the media budget. If you can spend a couple of million on a PR agency, you will get it. The third one is if you don't have one or two, you focus on a celebrity endorsement. That doesn't really have to be a movie star, but if you can get President Obama or David Cameron to launch the challenge with you, yeah, that's going to be great and free. The fourth one is partnerships. Make sure you're not doing this by alone, but create networks of partners. So, for example, we work closely with The Economist or Nature or a lot of universities. So you make sure that you're not the only one with this message, but you say, I'm, David Osimo, I'm creating this prize, but I have 50 universities who are saying the same thing, and I reach university students. And finally, you need to create a creative and unusual concept. And this goes back to your question about the app challenges. Another app challenge, not so sure the world is waiting for it, but if you do something like the DARPA Red Balloon Challenge, you make something that is a bit odd, creative, people are talking about it, the social networks are spreading it, then even if you don't have the first four, the media is paying attention. Anyway, so that's the answer for how do you get above it. My real vision, my real hope is that actually we're getting to a point where I don't mind that these challenges coming out like this. I don't mind an overload because I believe this could be the future of how we work. This could be the future of how we, solve problems in terms of we already have 250,000 solvers on our database. There are a few people who have repeatedly solved many of our set of challenges. They could quit their day job and do this. We already have a mobile workforce. We never really work from the office anyways. We are so many freelancers. I think in 20 years' time, perhaps I'm wrong, 20 years' time, why not create a system where you get based on your skills and your experience. We don't have to create a big web page where we say this is the big green challenge, but perhaps you get an email and say, hey, David, based on your background, we have 3 more challenges for you to solve today. And that might be how you make your money. And so that's kind of where I don't mind the overload because I think when I come back to this idea of eBay of ideas, that really means I want people to post and solve challenges as their main job.
That's great, and actually, you point to probably one of the key features that platforms like yours must have, which is some kind of reputation management, some kind of expertise management tools, which are finely grained and are able to identify the right solver and the appropriate people. Is this, to what extent is this important in your business?
I think it's very important, but we're not done yet. I think right now we're still in the entire industry broadcasting a challenge. Because we want to give clients the eyeballs, we want to give them the PR effect. But I think we will get there more and more that we, as you said, if I'm a solver, I don't. I think the system that we're working on, which I call a translator system, because you want to translate the problem to a definition that the solver care about. And that I think will be the future of making sure I want to go into my inbox every morning and say, what are the 5 challenges that I could apply for that I have a chance for? But the killer here is I don't want to say, I don't want, only because I put the word green in my profile doesn't mean I should get green challenges because you still need to get the outsider idea. So it's a challenge that is, we're all working on this. I think it's the future, but it's not today yet. Today we still have to broadcast a lot. We have to think of actually the way to do it is what we do in our design phase is you need to flatten the problem. So you need to make it as flat as possible that different industries can solve it. And once we flatten it, then we can still market it specifically to different communities.
That's great. And actually, you mentioned design. And I think one thing that we can draw out from our conversation is that inducement prizes are good, challenge, good ideas, but the trick is in designing it appropriately. It's not because you set the money out there that you will have a success. You need the methodology. And thanks for sharing lots of the tips and methods that you have. So I think we need to wrap up. So I have two just last questions. The first one is, who are the typical solvers in your experience? Are they top researchers that do it on their free time, or they retired people, hobbyists, amateurs? What's in your experience?
It's a total mix. We have, as you mentioned, we have solvers from retired teachers to professionals to probably less the academics. I think the high level Harvard researcher is already he put his path onto that course, and that's probably fine because what they know, we already know what they know because that's what they publish. So typically, I would say if you're a Harvard PhD, you're probably not, could you solve problems on an incentive for any challenge? Yeah, you could, but you're so committed to that academic career, then you're probably not solving challenges, which is okay because part of what we're trying to do is we're not trying to do the same thing twice. So if the academic research is going this way, fine. Let's create another system that is faster, more efficient, and leads to some breakthrough results that we all are willing to pay for if we get it. So I think it's more the second part, not necessarily, but less the scientific community.
Yeah, that's great. So last question is not a question. Is I've asked you many things. Is there something that you want to say specifically to the Italian policymakers and practitioners and researchers that you feel we haven't discussed?
I think, yeah, if I have one message, then it's to every CEO and every president of a country, they have to realize that the world has changed and it's open. You have to be open. The crowd is already connected. They want to be involved in what you do as a product with your company or as a policies. And finally, they are getting organized through Facebook, through so many things. You need to involve them in what you do. What I would advise everybody is solve problems through competitions, but you can crowdfund it. If it's a problem that the people care about, why you don't have to pay for it. Let the crowd pay for your challenge because they care about it. You need to be as open as you can to involve them, and that means for whoever you are, you have to give up some control. And that is my message to everybody who wants to have an impact in innovation in the world is open up because the crowd is connected. They want to be involved, and either you're with them or they will do it without you.
That's
So
great.
And if you want to be with them, I can tell you how.
Great, thanks a lot. Just one last thing outside of the interview. Can you say something like "See you at Forum PR" in 1 week?
I'm looking forward to see you in Rome at the Forum PA. It's going to be fun.
Great. Okay, I'm stopping the interview. That was